guys, this is the June mid-month challenge. We're going to make a soft glass jellyfish. So what I'm doing is I have a 12mm clear rod of clear that I bought, and I'm going to make a Maria. So I have heated up the end and made a gather about the size I want to deal with, which is probably grape size, not much bigger than that. And then I'm going to make some dots on this. So this is a Maria here, so it's not very large. As you can see, it's flat then on one side, and I'm going to use that flat side to make my tendrils for my jellyfish. I have pulled out a stringers in the color that I want my tendrils to be, because I want to be able to make pretty small little dots. I don't want huge dots in here because I want to put in quite a few of them. So I made my first dot in the center, and then made some dots around the edge of that. I'm going to put some dots around the edge of that. I don't want to go all the way out to the side because then there's not enough clear to cover them. But if you do, you just add more clear later. It's not the end of the world. Alright, so I have quite a few dots here, as you can see. Let me heat them up so you can actually see them a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to melt all these guys in. You're going to need for this, other than some clear, and it doesn't have to be a 12mm rod like I have. You can use a 5mm and then just get a decent sized gather on the end of it. I'm just making my life a little easier with what I have available. So now I'm going to use a pokey. This is just a small mandrel that we had ground down to a point, but whatever pointy tool you might have will be fine. So all of these guys are melted in flat. Now I'm going to go in, I'm going to heat it, I'm going to brace my hand on the bottom here so that I'm not wiggling all over, and I'm going to just put my pokey into the center of each one of these dots that I've made. Usually starting in the center and kind of working your way out works the best. The reason that I'm doing this step, you don't have to do this step, but I like my tendrils to end in a point. If you don't particularly care if they end in a point, then you don't need to do this. Alright, so they're all poked in. Not poked in far, just poked in enough so that they've got a point on them. Now I'm going to do an implosion with this. So to do an implosion, you hold your arm up kind of at a 45-degree angle and let heat the outside edge of the clear, letting it kind of fold in on the center. And then when it kind of rounds up a little, then you bring it over to your mandrel, or not mandrel, your marver, and push it down a little. You don't want to push it down too hard. You just kind of get it flat again, and then come and heat up the edge again. Now with soft glass, this is easy. I mean, the implosion part of it doesn't take very long at all. But with borosilicate, if you were going to try these in Boro, it takes a little bit longer. It takes a few more pushes in. Now I have my tendrils to where they are nice and rounded at the end here. I don't want them to be quite so fat, so I'm going to use just a piece of clear, and I'm going to heat up this area where I've got my tendrils, and I'm just going to pull them out a little bit. I'm going to elongate them more when I take off this bottom piece of glass that I have. But for right now, I want these all to meet up in the center of my glass, and I'm going to make a kind of a cone there on the end. So I took off a little bit of my glass and I made a cone at the end. I'm going to make it more cone-like. Like I say, I'm used to making these in Boro. It's a little bit fewer steps, easier for some things, harder than other parts of this. So now my tendrils meet all at the center here up at the top. That's the important part. You want them all to meet up at the center there. This is a transparent color that I'm going to make as my undercolor of the cap. Okay, so I've wrapped a bit of this around the tip of that cone. As you can see now, it's got a little lump there. So I went all the way around it, and now I'm going to melt it in. Next, I'm going to use an opaque color that that kind of goes with this. It's purple, deep purple that I'm putting under it, and then a lighter purple opaque on top of it. And I'm going to put a little dot on the top here so that it covers that whole area. And then I'm melding it together. I want some of that transparent to show on the edge, so I'm trying not to let that opaque completely go over the transparent. You can kind of see that here. This darker area is the transparent, and then the lighter is the opaque, and then you can see the tendrils down in there as well. So next, I'm going to fill in. You can see this V here between the head and the tendrils. I'm going to fill that in with clear. With soft glass, this is a very easy part because you can get that nice and molten and just easily go around that and fill in without trapping any air. In borosilicate, that's a much harder step because you really don't want to trap any air in there. Okay, so I'm trying to make this all one size at this point. So I'm going to just keep wrapping this clear nice and hot around it. And then I'm going to keep going up and over the whole cap because I want that whole cap to be covered in clear. And I want a fairly thick encasement of the clear around that cap so that the jellyfish looks like it's floating. If you don't put enough clear around it, then it looks like it goes up into your bail. And it's not a bad thing, it just is different than what I am aiming for. Okay, so I've now made a fairly decent sized cap on top of my cap. And I've tried really hard not to encase any of that air in there. If you get a few air bubbles, it's really not a big deal. It's a jellyfish, for crying out loud. They're in the water. You just want to make sure that if you get an air bubble that you take the time to make that air bubble round. Round air bubbles are safe, and non-round air bubbles have the potential of becoming a stress on the glass. So now I have my clear on here. Now I'm just reheating the whole thing because I had kind of ignored the bottom half and it cracked a little bit, but I was able to heal it. Now I'm going to punty up to the top. Okay, you can kind of see my jellyfish in there. I'm going to keep it rolling around because if I stop it, it will go to the one side. So now I'm going to punty up. Got a piece of clear. I'm going to bring it to a little bit of a point so I not have so much surface. Actually, I'm going to punty up. I made myself a spacer bead. That's going to be my bail. So I'm going to punty up with the color that my spacer bead is going to be. That way it's not as imperative that I get all of the color off. I'm trying to remember what color I did my spacer bead. I think I did it in the transparent. So we're going to use a transparent purple here, and I'm going to punty it up. Now is the fun part. We're going to elongate these tendrils. So I'm going to heat up this area where the tendrils are. I want kind of that whole area to be a little warm. I guess molten, not warm. Pretty hot, because I want them to move and I want to be able to twist them as I'm pulling. So, I've got them pretty hot. Now I'm going to twist and pull, twist and pull.
This is after one day.
Twisting and pulling, and then I pull that piece of glass off. Now, if you don't like how thin this bottom piece is, you can add more clear to it. I like this look for my jellyfish pendants. It looks like a jellyfish to me. So, this is the way I leave them. But you could add, at this point, you could go around and add more clear if you wanted to. I'm going to punty up now to the bottom with a rod of clear because I don't want to add any more color. So this is the bottom being this point here. I'm going to punty it up. If you can do a cold seal, that's great. If you don't have that ability, heating it all the way on there is fine because we can pull it off at the end. Now I'm taking off this top punty, the purple that I have, and since this is the color that my little spacer bead that I'm going to use as a bail is, I'm going to leave actually a little bit on there. Get nice and molten so that I make sure that it's become part of the bead. I don't want it to pop off. So now I'm going to go get my little spacer bead and I'm going to give myself some insurance heat. And I'm going to go run over to my kiln. Got my spacer bead here. I'm going to heat it up. It's been just kind of chillaxing in the kiln. I'm going to pick a spot that I like on it. I'm going to pick a spot that I like on my jellyfish pendant. I'm going to meld the two together. Now with soft glass, this is an easy process. It doesn't really take a whole lot of heat. You get it molten and it's going to stick together. But you do want to make sure that you're on completely. Okay, now I'm going to let it pull down a little bit, make sure that it's centered. Now I'm going to heat up this bottom and take off this punty. Okay, I'm going to give myself some insurance heat on the whole thing. And then it's ready to go into the kiln. There she is. A little purple with some red tendrils. Okay, she's going in the kiln now. We'll see what she looks like tomorrow.